Welcome to the Up in Your Family Business podcast, where we dive into the heart of family business with intimate interviews, expert insights, inspirational stories, valuable resources, and practical tips to help grow your family business. Our guest for today's Up in Your Family Business podcast is Rick Meyer, Vice President of Truck Service Inc. and TSI Truck Parts. Truck Service Inc., aka TSI, or at least that's what we call it, TSI, has locations in Florida, Ohio, and Indiana, including its headquarters in Indianapolis.
That's right.
And in eastern Indianapolis specifically is the TSI Truck Parts warehouse. And we'll learn more about that here at some point. Just want to give a quick interview. So thank you for being here today, Rick. Appreciate you sharing part of your day with us.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks for having me, Todd.
No problem. I'm actually very excited about today's topic, and I'll share the subject of today's topic here in a second. But ever since we launched this podcast, I've always had this subject in mind, and I've been thinking about who should I have do this. And when I was on the phone with you, I was like, duh, you're the perfect person for this conversation. So again, thank you for.
I hope I don't let you down.
You won't let me down. You're the perfect person to be sitting across from me. It's all good. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So what are we talking about today? Can you still hear me okay? Am I sound good? Okay.
Yeah, you sound great.
All right. The title is Back to the Roots, a Return to the Family Business. In this episode, Rick, a dynamic leader. You are a dynamic leader, right?
We try.
Okay. Yeah. Who ventured beyond his family business to gain valuable outside experience, will share his personal and professional journey of growth and development and how he returned to the family enterprise with fresh insights and perspectives that have revitalized TSI's operations and vision for the future. We will discuss the challenges Rick faced, the innovative strategies. I'm really setting high expectations here. The innovative strategies he has implemented and how he has navigated the important and difficult balance of traditional and contemporary leadership. And that's something you always face whenever you're dealing with multi-generations, years past, in the future. So
yep.
I look forward to a conversation filled with stories, inspiration, and practical advice for anyone leading a family business into a prosperous future. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You ready for that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So before we get into some of the meatier questions, share a brief history as far as TSI's history, and very specifically the influence and the role your dad has played in the company.
Sure. So TSI was formed in 1966. 1996. Yeah. And it was by three team members that were involved in the company that previously owned the service operations that we do today. Mm-hmm. And so it was an opportunity as that company was being acquired. They had the opportunity to purchase the service portion of it, formed Truck Service Inc. And some of these locations have been around since the 1930s. So, a lot of tradition, a lot of experience, a lot of history. In some of these facilities. So he had an accounting background, as well did one of his other original partners. And so they saw it as a good business opportunity, something that they were familiar with and knew was a profitable enterprise to be involved with. And so that was how Truck Service Inc. formed, was a spin-off, if you will, and coming together of these other operations and other facilities.
Which is why certain dates hit you. Like you might think of the 30s or the 60s or the 90s. It's hard to remember exactly the history, right? I got you. So did your dad become a part of it in 96?
So he was a part of the parent company originally. And like I said, when they were being acquired, they spun this off.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's your dad's role in the company now?
So he's still our president and largest majority owner. Still involved in the day to day. Starting to focus more on just strategic things and really helping me with the day to day operations. So general accounting and some HR functions. So still involved and still love having the vast wealth of knowledge and experience that he can provide from a business leadership standpoint, and especially, like I said, on the accounting and HR side, is huge.
How many more years do you think your dad has? Has he told you?
He hasn't told me specifically.
Okay. So you'll be vice president a little bit longer,
maybe
for the foreseeable future.
But he enjoys it, right? We always talk about it. Having those challenges, being on your toes, helps keep you young. gives them something to do and be motivated every day to be involved with. And it's a lot of fun to be able to do it together. That's been one of the greatest things about coming back into the company was getting to work with my father and learn from him and
that makes sense.
what he does. Yeah.
Okay. So most of what we're going to talk about today is your return and forward. Okay. But it probably would help in context. So you go off to college, right? Okay. So before that, I'm assuming you were part of the business before that. And so give us a little background as to what it was like before you left.
Sure. So growing up for me, of course, was around the business, knew what my dad did, would go visit him at work and do random odd jobs associated with the business sometimes, whether it be stuffing envelopes for flyers going out to customers or, preparing batches of T-shirts to go out to the branches or whatever, just odd jobs that you'd, maybe have your kid do or whatever. And then as I got older, when I was in high school and then even first couple years in college, I'd work at one of the branches in the summer.
Okay. That makes sense.
Out on the floor as a summer job, hourly, driving a parts truck, delivering parts, answering phones, sweeping the parking, sweeping the floors up, taking out the trash, And
getting paid top dollar, right?
Well, maybe just above minimum wage, maybe. But it was, I enjoyed it. It was fun because it was around stuff that I had been around my whole life or knew of anyways, and got to be in that environment that I thought was cool, right? Getting around, big trucks and mechanics and things like that. So I really enjoyed it. And it, definitely helped instill in me that hard work pays. And
minimum wage
at minimum wage, But yeah.
Okay, so that's really awesome. Yeah. So you obviously enjoyed what you were doing. You loved what you were doing. You gained some valuable lessons and values and all kinds of stuff. So now you go to college. Did you go to Purdue?
I did. I went to Purdue. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you obviously did not return to the business, correct?
Right.
So here you are loving it. Your dad's a part of it. What led to you deciding not to return to the business immediately after college and going out and doing some other things?
Yeah. So, my first, probably one of my biggest interests and passions has always just been, I'd say, mechanical in general, right? So that really leads to engineering, when you think about math and sciences. And so that's what I went to college for, was engineering, specifically industrial engineering.
Very cool.
And that was, where my interest was at. And really what I focused on was the engineering side of things, which I think in hindsight also shows why I enjoyed being involved in the business. When you look at, working with your hands, being around mechanical equipment and automobiles and trucks and things like that, right?
Very nice. So it was almost just kind of validated and made it clear that this is the path you wanted to go.
Yeah. So my intent going to college was go into engineering and go into some sort of applied engineering type field, which is what I did after college. It was never my intent right after college, or at least in the front of my mind, to come back into the business. It was to go out into the world and be in a role in some sort of applied engineering, and that's just what I did.
Okay. So so it wasn't necessary. So when you left to go to college, did you know you weren't going to come back immediately already, or you figured it out later after you graduated?
Yeah, it really wasn't in my mind to prepare myself to come back to the company, to the the family business, to Truck Service Inc.
I do a lot of reading on family businesses, multi-generational, and a lot of the leaders, who are really successful in their return, or in their business, are the ones who do leave for a while. Yep. Whether they planned it or didn't plan it, they're able to bring back so much. And again, I love reading about those things, which is why I love today's conversation. So a little background then. So you graduate from Purdue and you go out into the world. How many years between graduation and your return to truck service? And just give us a little background on some of the roles that you held.
Yeah. So I spent a little over 12 years with one company right out of college, and started there in a technical sales role. So when I talk about applied engineering, I was using my engineering education, if you will, but also interpersonal skills and just as somebody who's a little more outgoing, was a great fit for me. Really got to enjoy both sides of that, not sitting behind a desk every day, which is what I didn't want to do as an engineer, but get to use those technical skills. So Did that for 6-7 years, and then moved into a management role, overseeing a sales team, and then into a little bit even larger leadership role with a manufacturing division within that company. And what I found through all that is that I really enjoyed when the company was a smaller company, family owned and operated, and how that applied to how that company operated. And
that company
and
that you worked at, it was a family-owned business.
It was, yeah, and grew exponentially while I was there.
Because of you, right?
Yeah, right. Maybe in a small part, but I can't take all the credit. No,
okay,
not at all. But grew exponentially, and it was a great company to be involved with, great people, and really enjoyed it there. And then as I got to move into roles where I had more leadership responsibility and managing people, started to see and come to find out that I really enjoyed that, but also, helping drive that direction and take that leadership role was something I really enjoyed. So then as, transitions and time passed within truck service, and there was an opportunity to look at, some changes from a leadership standpoint. That's when the conversation started with my dad of would I have an interest in getting back involved in the company.
Which holiday party was it?
I don't know if it was a holiday party or.
You always hear stories about, well, it was like at Christmas, my dad, we were just.
Yeah, things were changing. He just asked me, he said, would you ever have any interest? I'm trying to figure out
so
what.
So he did approach you about that.
Yeah, he did. And, would you ever have any interest in be involved in the company? I need to figure out what the next stage is for us,
You and I talked briefly about this when we were deciding to do this podcast episode. And it's interesting because your dad later came to you and said, hey, what do you think about this? At the same time, he never pressured you or set the expectation for you to do that right out of college, correct?
Not at all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you think it was just, he saw your growth, he saw your experience, there was a very specific moment in the history of the company and it just, all things just came together?
Yeah, I think that to some extent, I think that's fair. Some circumstances just kind of aligned to allow it to make sense and happen. Gathered obviously a lot of outside experience in different areas, and gained management and leadership experience. And so it helped me re-enter the company in a place that made sense at that time of my life and in the life cycle of the company, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, well, before I want to ask you another question. What are some of the most valuable insights and skills that you gained from this other job that you were able to bring directly with you?
Yeah, so especially an engineering company and that engineering background, defining processes and being consistent in what we do and how we do it so that you have results that you can expect and can be repeatable. Are big things that I found. I'd also say just in general, hard work and willing to being able to do more than what is expected. I wouldn't say that I learned that from that, but in what I did,
developed it
and seeing the results of the things I was doing. I know that it works, right? And see the value in that, and in recognizing and building up the people around you. The people you work with, the people that are in the company, whether it's subcontractors or direct employees, whatever, the more that you have that mutual respect and relationship and feel that there's true gain and benefit, from moving in the same direction and working together or with each other, the results are going to come. And so, that's the thing that I really took away is really respecting those people that you're working with and building those relationships. You work to succeed with and for each other.
So you're excited about coming back to the family business.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges did you have? Right. I mean, maybe there were no challenges. Maybe it was just easy. I don't know. But usually, anytime you make a change, even if it's a good one. Yeah. So, what were some of the challenges you faced? Just leaving. Hey, I'm doing this. This looks to be a good fit, but I am leaving what I'm doing. I'm coming back into the fold. I'm being brought in for a certain purpose. What were some of the immediate challenges that you faced with that transition?
Yeah, so probably the biggest challenges were more from maybe a structural standpoint. It's not the right term, but been doing things in certain ways for so long, and that's just the way it always been done, right? There was not much need or effort to modernize or get implement technology and things like that. And so coming from, again, kind of an engineering background and really embedded in technology, I won't say it was a shock, but it was also what I saw as the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge, right? Because it's massive change when you start trying to change entire processes or infrastructure that your business is operating on. And so that's the biggest challenges that I saw, was modernizing the business and modernizing the things we were doing without disrupting it day to day to the point that it would be a problem and not be able to serve our customers.
So how do you do that? People don't like change.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, a lot of people will take something that's not working for the sake of not changing. So, okay. So you come back in, things are being done a certain way. You're tasked with creating the vision and this, as you say, these modernization of technology and whatnot. So how did you go about doing that? I mean, did you feel it? Did you get any resistance from anybody, or did people kind of embrace it? What was that like?
It's all over the board, right? You have some that are going to be adverse to change almost regardless of what you do, right? And some are all about it. They just, have that positive attitude. Yep, we'll figure it out. We'll get it done. And then there's, of course, always in the middle and in between. So it was all over the board, and really my mindset always is manage it a little bit, right? So it's not too much all at once. Gradually work through it. Be a true partner with our team members in what we're doing. It's not, this is what we're doing and how we're going to do it and get on board or whatever, right? It's here's why we need to do it. Explain the why. Get everyone as much as possible. Sometimes you can't, but bought in to why we're doing something and how it's going to help us.
When you first came on, did you do a lot of listening and watching and talking? Did you learn a lot before you started implementing some of these things?
I did, yeah. One of the things in that first few months that I did was sit down with certain team members, go visit the various locations, and just see what we were doing, how we were doing it, kind of get reintegrated into, how things were going, the processes and the business.
It's interesting, the dynamic. So you and your dad have always had a good relationship.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have come back if you didn't think it would work.
Right.
And it doesn't work for everybody. It's interesting, it's interesting how many family businesses there are out there, because there are a lot of family. I wonder how many there would be if it were easier, because there are a lot of family businesses that don't start or don't make it because it's not easy to be with family. So your dad,
or splinter out,
splinter out. Right? Yeah. So you have this relationship with your dad. He asked you to come back. You're excited. You see this bright future. You're excited about being part of the family business again and whatnot. But but your dad. You guys are different generations.
Yeah. And
even though you were tasked with what you were tasked with, and we're talking about that change and potential resistance, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a more intimate, personal question, but
sure.
Tell us about how you and your dad, despite wanting that to happen, how did you guys navigate that initially? How did you make that work where this is my role, this is who I am, and then this is your role, and this, just basically, how did that all work for you guys?
So, first, I would say I feel extremely fortunate that it wasn't much of a challenge.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, right. Because I know, to your point, it very much can be.
It can be.
But we had conversations and set the expectations before we ever decided for me to come back into the business that there was going to be mutual respect there, and that I expected and he expected me to be able to implement and do things and work together on that, to challenge him at times, and also give me the opportunity to go down paths or do things that I believed in, and I think part of that is he believes in me, right? And so what I'd achieved already in my own life, how I had success I had, how I'd handled situations. To your point, I mean, we've been close all throughout my life. Had a good, close relationship. So I think he had a good confidence in who he was bringing back into the business, whether it was family or not, right? And so from early on, really the whole time, that was never much of a challenge. Could have, just conversation about something we were wanting to do or thinking about doing, and get to a, get common ground on it. For better or worse, we're alike in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So maybe that helps, right?
We'll have to talk to your wives to figure out whether that's good or not.
Right. And but probably some common interests and veins of thinking and things like that. And ultimately, and it's in our core values too. But just doing the right thing. If you're doing the right thing and you're moving in the right direction, and it makes sense typically. So,
a few minutes ago, you mentioned about conversations, or you guys set expectations. So, from the time that, what was the timeline from when your dad first mentioned it at Thanksgiving or when your dad first introduced the idea?
Yeah.
How much time did you need or take before you said, "Yeah, let's do this"? Was there a certain period of time? A lot of conversations you had, or?
Yeah, there was a number of conversations. Really. It was probably, maybe over a period of 6 months or something like that mentioned it. And, I don't know, maybe at some point. And then as you think about it more and things change or whatever, it's like, yeah, okay, that might make sense. I can envision what this might look like, and, have a little more conversation. And ultimately I got a point into what I was doing previously, where I felt like I needed a change. It was taking me away from home a lot. The business has grown a lot. It wasn't the same business that I could come into and really had valued. And so it was, for me, the time was right to look at something different. And so when I made that decision, I looked at some things within that industry and some opportunities there, and then continued to have that conversation with my dad. And ultimately, that's what I decided is I really love the idea of working with him, and ultimately being your own boss one day, and more than anything, being able to manage and lead people in a business in a way that I believed in, and really was in that vision of how I wanted things to work and run, and in saying that is in the same vein of how my dad does things. So that makes it an easy transition when you're following somebody who's believes in doing things the way you do too.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do have a younger sister. Yeah.
Younger sister. Has she ever worked in the business?
She really hasn't. Never really had much of an interest. We're a lot different. We get along well and have a good relationship, but just we're about 4 years apart, and just never was really interested. She helped, stuff envelopes and some of that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, was she a part of the business when she was little?
Yeah, some little stuff like that, little side jobs, putting stamps on the enveleopes and stuff like that occasionally.
So when your dad came to her and said, "Hey, would you like to return to the business?" She said, "Hell no!"
I need to ask that question someday, because I don't know if that conversation ever came up, but that'd be a good Thanksgiving table topic, right?
What's her name?
My sister's name's Amanda.
Amanda. Listen, I'm getting ready to ask your older brother Rick to join the company. Would that bother you in any way? Would that make you feel anything less? Dad, I have no freaking interest in coming back to the business. Do whatever you want with Rick. I don't care.
Could care less. Please don't make me.
Good. Yeah, but that's cool that Amanda was a part of that when she was younger. I think that's really neat. I love it. What does she do now?
So she's in performing arts. So she went to school for performing arts and has got some roles in some small movies and
no way.
Some voice activity.
Oh, that's really cool.
She does marketing project management as well for within that industry.
That's awesome. Yeah, mechanical engineering, performance, it's all the same thing.
Right.
It's all exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So when did you officially come back? I should know this, but for some reason, 1918? What year?
This would have been in, I put it on the spot, 2018.
That's what, okay.
And, like February, March of 2018.
Okay. So 18. So we're talking 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be quite a challenge for you if we're going back 6 years. But what were some of the most beneficial, impactful, whatever word you want to use, strategies or ideas that you put in place that you thought made a really good immediate impact?
Yeah. So I think I'd go back to the biggest thing was trying to get more consistent across our locations. We have 8 different independent operations in a lot of ways. But to be able to, effectively, both from a time and cost standpoint, manage those and do things, they need to be more consistent. So gradually bringing those together onto more common paths. They each do their own things a little different ways. They're in different markets and have different, niche specialties or businesses in some ways. But again, gaining that consistency was really one of the biggest things that I thought was important, so that we could more effectively manage, grow, make change, things like that.
When you say consistency, are you referring primarily to operations, or are we talking about other areas as well?
Operations really.
The operations, yeah. Being in different markets, I've always been curious. I'm going to ask you a question. You might not be an expert in this area, but so you have your brand. We are Truck Service Inc. These are our values. This is what we do. This is who we serve. Do you see, even with these operations in place that are standard across the board, do you see much difference from state to state, location to location? Are there little nuances that are different that you have to adjust to?
There definitely are. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that can be the same, right? Our process for vehicle intake, inspection, how we set up or process the work orders and things like that. And of course, our software system that we use is consistent among all 8 locations, and so that helps drive some of that. So that's all the same, when it comes from an operational process standpoint. What really changes within those markets are some of the specific work we do, more or less of sometimes, and what type of customer or client base there is in some cases. We might be really strong in one area in, refuse companies, and then another area is going to be more trucking fleet, type companies, over the road trucks. Some may be stronger in municipal type vehicles. So, really it's catering more specifically to our clients in those locations than anything else. It's still the same type of work. We're doing suspension, brakes, and steering. It's just what type of customers are we doing that work for? Yeah,
you and I have talked before. I mean, there are certain branches. I know you visit all your branches, but my guess is, people are people, right? So. And every market's different. So you probably I'm sure you see some differences from one to the other when you make visits.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as your experiences. Obviously, at all your locations, you have general manager, you have leadership roles within each location.
Absolutely.
From a leadership perspective, what have you found to be, and let's tie this back to what you learned, maybe it was in your early days when you were sweeping the floors and licking the envelopes. Maybe it was college. Maybe it was your 12 years of being out and about. But what have you found to be the leadership qualities, the leadership perspectives that have been most valuable? Because obviously there's a lot of change within your industry. Yeah. You and I have talked. You lose a general manager. That's a big adjustment. That's a major hurdle.
Yeah.
So to get through all the challenges that you've experienced in the last 6 years, what have you found to be, what keeps you most grounded, what keeps you most focused, and what keeps the engine, churning? What have you found to be most helpful?
Well, given that we're a small, medium business, right? And within each of those branches, they're their own small business in some ways. Probably the biggest attribute that I think is most important is, I always classified it, and I learned this from another guy that I worked with, a colleague of mine, before I came back to truck service, but being able to be a chameleon and wear any hat necessary, right? When you're a small business, that manager's got to be a little bit of everything. He needs to be able to, and by being able to do that, gains the respect of all the people he's working with, right? So, whether that's being a sales guy, putting on your salesman hat, being the accounting guy and making sure the paperwork's right, HR and making sure that administrative hiring and, things like that are involved, and taking care of the employees when it comes to reviews, the technical side where he's, managing the service side of things. Really got to be able to do it all and juggle that. So being able to do that successfully can be pretty hard, obviously.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But, the ones that do it the best are the most successful.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. What's changed the most? So from a leadership perspective, as well as a vision. So obviously you come in all wide-eyed 6 years ago. You're all excited. What has been, again, from the vision and leadership, what's changed the most over the last 6 years? Look back when you first started where you are now. What changes have you experienced, and where has your perspective changed from those 6 years?
So I don't know that my perspective has changed, but as a company, I think we've the mindset and the perspective has changed because I believe in, and our guys have heard me say it a number of times, right? If you're not growing, you're not adapting, you're not changing, you're falling behind, and you're eventually dying, right?
It's true.
We were really comfortable in what we were doing and how we were doing it, and I think not averse to change, but just weren't worried about it. And so instilling that mindset of change is coming, and it's an important positive thing that it can be positive, has been something that's evolved over the last 5 or 6 years, and that's what I see is that first year, any change we were talking about, there's probably more pushback, or why are we doing this? We don't need to do this, those kind of things. And now when we're talking about change, it's usually more in a positive reception and mindset, and realizing that it's part of life today. The world around us is changing extremely fast. Changes every day, right? And again, if you're not changing, you're falling behind.
Yeah, and also I don't think people are necessarily afraid of change for the sake of change. I think once they've experienced change and they see that it's beneficial and they see that it can be helpful and it's not that bad, then people are like, okay, change. Yep. If they have bad experiences with change, then they fear that's just the human condition, I think.
It is, and of course, I'm a positive person, I think, by nature. I like to think I am, and so that's the way we talk about it is we're going to try this. Let's see if it makes sense, see how it goes, and if it doesn't, we're going to adapt. We'll go a different direction if we need to. I think that's an important aspect. Is it's not, and when we talked about leadership and leadership qualities, I think an important one is getting the people that are involved in it on board, right, and being open and having communication, and working through that together, not just again sitting down and saying this is what we're doing, get on board, or see the door kind of thing. And that's a big change in leadership. We were talking about leadership qualities and how they've changed over time that I've seen within our branches and our managers too. Is if you think about a real blue collar workforce that's out working on trucks, right? We got a lot of military background, so it was very rigid in a lot of ways.
And
rigid, yeah, whatever that means. And so becoming a little bit more flexible and adaptable with the workforce and people in general is something I've seen a big change of over the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the hot seat, make you feel a little vulnerable.
Yeah.
So again. So you had these 12 years out and about, learned a lot, experienced a lot, came back in. So let's get a little honest here. What were some of the mistakes you made? So you came in like, okay, I got this job to do.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes. Maybe you don't make mistakes. I don't make mistakes. I make a few mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that you made?
Yeah.
And those mistakes could have been failures that led to success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like. You had this agenda for the first year plan.
Sure.
What were some things maybe you would do differently?
Yeah. In general, I think mistakes are opportunities, right? And it's an opportunity to reevaluate and again go in a different direction. So I think anytime where we've had a misstep, we can always fix it. It was always my mindset, and I always tell that to our team. If you make a mistake, we're going to have errors. There's going to be issues. Probably not anything we can't fix or get past. So that's fine. That's how we learn. And so, as far as specific mistakes or things that maybe happen, I mean, there's been numerous things because again, I'm a believer in always adapting and making change for whatever it is, right?
Sure.
So, whether it's a process or whatever. we say it's not working.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think it can be a big challenge sometimes, and I've learned that over the years that it doesn't do us any good to try to keep going forward on something that's broken, and so just admitting this isn't working, and taking a different path. My biggest challenge personally is, want to be involved in everything and try to help and take care of everything I can, and probably put too much on my plate. And so the biggest thing I've learned is to try to delegate more, or when you say no, or just set realistic expectations of, we're not going to be able to do that for a while. We can't get to that kind of thing. Those are the biggest challenges I personally come up against, and where I see my biggest mistakes or failures is trying to take on too much personally, and then it gets just bogged down, and it's no fun for everybody.
You sound like someone who's going for their job interview. One of my strongest weaknesses is I work too hard. I'm too focused on my work.
No.
Come on. No. Did you see a change? We hear these words: leader, manager. I mean, you have to lead people. I think to a certain degree you have to manage. You talked about delegating and trusting and things like that. But did you see a shift? So looking back when you first started, did you manage more, lead less, vice versa? Any changes in that in the last 6 years?
Yeah, definitely. Initially my intent and my role was to not directly lead or manage anyone. And that was intentional. I think you come in, and there was an opportunity for me to gain the trust, see me get in there and work and roll my sleeves up and gain credibility with team. We're very fortunate to have a lot of really tenured employees that have been with us a long time, and so I'm sure there was some skepticism or concern about somebody coming in, and I'm younger than a lot of them, or maybe was at one time.
I was wondering
right?
about
and so you're up against those stigmas and challenges sometimes. So that was my intent was just to come in and work hard and prove that I deserved to be there and could get the job done and be successful and help them ultimately do their job and take care of our customers.
It's like some of these NFL coaches. Back when I was a kid, every NFL coach was like twice the age of the players. Now you have some coaches that are younger than some of the veterans.
Gosh, yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy. Isn't that funny? I think that's funny.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, love to hear this. I think you actually you made some positive mention about that job you had for that company you worked for 12 years. They were also a family business.
Right.
So I'd like to hear your thought. You're in a family business. You work for a family business. What do you think in your experience, what makes a family business different? What makes a family business special? What unique challenges I would love to get your perspective on family business.
Man, that's a good question. Well, I think it can vary by, of course, family, what the business is and the size and everything. But what I really came to enjoy when in that business and then with truck service now is the smaller atmosphere where everybody. There's a true care and interest in the entire team. I think coming to work every day, it's one thing to earn a paycheck. It's another to feel like you're really part of that and you feel valued and you're not just there punching the clock, right? And so being able to have that true relationship with your colleagues and your team members, the employees, I hate referring to it that way because we're very flat in our company, and I firmly believe in that open door, flat from a management standpoint. So that was important to me and something that I really enjoyed and I see that we have now and don't ever want to let go of. And I think that becomes much more challenging as you grow and get bigger, right? As a company. And so that's one of our biggest challenges going forward is if we want to grow and expand, which we may and can potentially do, but how do we still keep that culture, intact? Fortunate for us because we are individual branches, like we can have it within the branch pretty easily, but how do we keep that culture as an overall company? Today, one of our favorite things to do is go, in branch visits. We're going out and we're, talking with all the employees, going around, get to know people, spend time with them, do a cookout, sit down at lunch with them, that kind of thing. And really, not just be a business owner or, part of the leadership team coming in to oversee something, really just be there with them and be part of that group and that team and really feel like we're all pulling in the same direction together.
Yeah. We work with family businesses, and one of the things that we see across the board, it's very interesting. Every family business we work with, I want to grow, but I don't want to grow too fast.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrupt my processes. I don't want to disrupt my culture. So it's like, it's interesting. I want to grow. I want to be successful. I want to be able to leave my whatever it is, their legacy, or pass it on to their children or whatever it is. But
sure.
And all companies have cultures for the most part, and all companies want to grow. But the mindset of family businesses is just slightly different. The way they look at employee relations, the way they look at customer-client relations, the way they look at culture, and how they prioritize all those things. Is that something you saw similar between truck service and your previous place?
Yeah, it really was, especially in the early years, when it was still family owned and a smaller company. That was, knowing the president, the owner, the previous, his father, those kind of things, was something that I noticed and really valued.
I wonder if you're being a part of a family business actually was helpful in that transition and even in making your decision to come back. I would think.
No, it really was. That was part of my, thought process is that's something I really valued and a part of being a part of that business that I enjoyed and being able to come back to truck service helped bring that back.
We see a lot of, I'm going to have you be you're going to be a business advisor or an economist for a second, but I've never asked anyone else that's been a podcast guest, but it's really coming to me now. We see a lot of, you made a mention about something you want to keep. You described your culture and your climate at truck service, and you want to keep that or maintain that. I forget what word to use. Sure. Forgive me. But it sounds like you have plans, long-term plans for truck service. I see a lot of smaller companies, who knows, it could be economic reasons. It could be because they don't have a family member to pass it on. I mean, unfortunately, there's not all. Your kids are real young, right?
Yeah.
How old's your oldest? 3?
She just turned 12.
Oh, 12, that's right. Yeah. And then you have
I have a 10-year-old,
10? Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know why I was thinking 3. So
seems like yesterday she was 3.
Man. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I know someone I know has a 3-year-old. At what age will you, I'm getting sidetracked here. Okay. I'm curious, at what age will you bring your child into the business to sweep floors and lick envelopes, if that will even be something that you'll do at that time?
So it's funny. So my oldest is a girl, and she's mentioned it, but she's pretty girly.
Yeah,
so she's not a real strong interest in what we do and that kind of thing. My son, on the other hand, has already started asking. He's
so you got Amanda and Rick in the fold, huh?
Yeah, to some extent. And he's
awesome.
we joke, but and I told you I was a lot like my dad. I've fallen out of the tree, hit every branch on the way down, and the same can be said for my son. So I'm not surprised that he's got interest. But I'm not going to push him. And if it's something that he's interested in and he wants to come and work some summers or whatever, we'll figure out a way to make that happen. And if it makes sense, it makes sense and it works. But I don't think being pressured or forced into anything, whether that's joining the family business or change that we're implementing in a branch, it may work, but more often than not, it's probably not going to be a long-term successful situation.
I think family business is so important for our country, our economy. Not even just the numbers. I mean, I see different reports about how many family businesses there are, and it's really weird. It varies.
Yeah,
it could be anywhere from 40% to 75%. And I'm like, where are we here? And how much of their GDP? Economics aside, I feel that, especially from working with family business, for some of the reasons we've talked about, are so critical. I think there would be a major loss if family businesses didn't exist.
Absolutely, yeah.
why do you? But we see a lot of family businesses for different reasons being bought up by bigger. Some of those bigger companies are family business too.
Sure,
but not necessarily. But I do think there's a difference between.
There's a difference.
There's a difference between family and non-family, family and local. Small. I think there's a difference even between small and large family, right?
Right.
So all these different combinations of size and structure.
Yeah.
But why do you think it is, like, how important it is for you to just stay, like, do you have aspirations someday of becoming larger by acquisition, or are you open to 30 years from now selling a business? Are you really hoping, no, we're a family business. I love being a part of a family business. I hope my son becomes a part of this, blah, blah, blah. What's your thought on the importance of your company, not just for the work you do, but being a family business within your community?
I think community is a big part of it, right? When you talk about family business and just small business in general, I mean, those are the ones that are in your community, that have a focus on that local area, right? And that changes or gets lost, on bigger companies, these big chains and things like that, right? I mean, they're there to generate revenue, and that's really it. And most of that revenue or profits going somewhere else, right? Whereas the family business, small businesses that are locally owned, more importantly, right? That's staying in the community. So it's helping with infrastructure, your sports teams, the community and culture there, right? Those are more often than not, and you see some bigger companies will be involved in that stuff, but the small businesses, small local owned businesses, I mean, are the majority of what the businesses are in most areas, right? So without them, you can't have.
Yeah. I always get sad when I hear a family business got bought out by a bigger operation, a bigger conglomerate. I don't know. It pains me. I don't like it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and it's tough. Like we're kind of in a sweet spot, and that's where it's the challenge of growth, like you kind of alluded to. I mean, if we were to acquire, a location or something, it's going to be another small, family-owned business or location, which
very cool.
Which is the way it's been. I mean, the location in Zanesville, it was, a locally owned, guy that ran it day to day and was ready to retire and be out of the business and didn't have any, family succession, opportunities. Right. And so, that was an opportunity for us to acquire that location. But again, because we can operate them as separate branches and, still maintain that local, feel. And to this day, that location particularly is still known as Black Spring, which is the location's name, and not as truck service, right? And we're fine with that. I mean, that's part of the community there, and it's a good location for us, and it's got great people, and it adds value to our company and what we do as a whole, and so it's a good fit.
That's really cool. Yeah. So what is your vision? Has your vision for the company changed much in the last 6 years, or is it pretty much the same?
I'd say it's fairly the same.
Okay.
The biggest thing is looking into other opportunities that are within what our strengths are still, right? So can we branch off just a little bit at all and expand in that way and capture other, whether it's other types of customers or other certain associated maybe services and things like that. For example, we've been very heavily on the service side of the business for a number of years. So we're looking more in can we do more for our existing customers just from a parts sales standpoint, right? How can we better serve our existing customer base is really our immediate mindset in the near future.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We're about to wrap up here, but I was about to ask you. I mentioned in the beginning about TSI Truck Parts. So tell us a little bit about Truck Parts, why you started it, and how you feel that's going to benefit your customers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Is how can we benefit our customers and internally our own operations
and serve them better, correct?
And serve them better, yeah. And so that's really where TSI Truck Parts came from, and opening a warehouse and distribution center here in Indianapolis. We've got the 3 locations locally here, but it gives us the opportunity to buy in bigger quantities, maybe bring in some inventory that we couldn't really do individually at each individual branch, but we could bring in at a central facility like that. buying in higher quantities at lower prices, being able to compete with some of the bigger companies out there that are more focused on parts, which then in turn allows us to better serve our customers. We hear day in and day out from our customers, and I love hearing it, is how much they really love doing business with us. We do a great job, and we hear their frustrations a lot of times with competitors within our industry, or not necessarily competitors, but other businesses in our industry that are often a lot larger than us. And so what we said to ourselves is, well, why can't we fill that need, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was a big part of it, was we can serve our existing customers with more of their parts needs if we can figure out a way to have the inventory and get it at a cost that makes sense, so that of course we can turn some profit on it as well, and allow our customers to still buy at a price that's competitive, for them compared to what they're doing today. And so that was a big drive for it. And then the second was e-commerce. The ability to get out on the internet and join the masses when it comes to selling online, a completely untapped market. So, those two things combined allowed us to envision, again, this warehouse and distribution center that supports both of those opportunities.
When did the warehouse become an idea?
Oh, an idea. From what I understand, people have been talking about it within the company for decades.
Oh, really?
And wanting to do it. And really, it really just started coming to fruition about 2 years ago, and has now been up and operational for about a year.
Okay. What caused the delay, and what made it possible?
Sure. Really good questions. I think, back to that mindset of change and being that culture that's shifted a little bit for us. And that is probably part of it. Not just doing the same thing we'd always done. Let's take a risk. Let's try this and see if it works. That was part of it. Having, a leadership team and team members that were all on board with it and willing to put in the work and effort and take the risk to do it, I think, was another factor. And so I'm really excited about the team we have in place that's willing to do those things, because again, you're gonna make mistakes. It may not work. If this doesn't work, that's fine. We'll pivot. And
so when you finally pulled the trigger, did everyone go, Rick, that was a great idea? They say it's about freaking time.
A little bit of both. Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah.
Some of those guys that have been there since '96, maybe you're jeez, oh man.
Yeah, no. In all seriousness, there was definitely some that questioned it, like, why are we doing this?
Really? Okay.
And then others were like, oh man, I'm so excited, right?
That's cool.
Been hoping we could do something like this for a long time. So all over the place.
There's that change again. There's that trying something, but the people that were maybe like, why are we doing it? Probably now are like, I can see why we're doing it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure, my guess is, in being a leader and a visionary and sometimes even a manager, my guess is that you don't get buy-in. How many employees do you have?
About 85.
So aside from a free lunch, the odds that you're going to get 85 people buying in on something is probably not going to be possible.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have this great idea, and pizza. Good idea, Rick. Let's do it. Okay. All right. So we are going to pause for our dad joke segment, and then we're going to circle back with you, and I have one more question to ask you.
All right.
Honestly, I love this subject. I can do this for hours, but it's good to keep a podcast. Well, there are some people out there who do podcasts for free. I don't know how they do it. Like Joe Rogan.
You got to have more than one guest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you're not going to stay around for 3 hours, probably. Okay.
Sorry, I can't do it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Unless there's pizza involved.
We'll keep it to it. Okay. See what I mean? Damn, I should have had the pizza. All right. So we'll keep it to about an hour. Okay. So we do this dad joke segment on every podcast, and it's just fun. I've been doing dad jokes. Well, I've been doing dad jokes for a long time. Puns, play on words. I love that stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the question.
Okay.
If you know the answer, you don't say a word. So I'm going to share the dad joke, and then the challenge is for you out there, the viewers or listeners, see if you can figure it out. Then when the podcast launches, you can go to our Facebook page, Element 212 on Facebook, and you'll see the question and answer.
Okay.
And what's really bad on Facebook is they have my head on there. You see those things where they use the head and so it's not my whole body, it's just my head. I'm like,
well, you're the star, right?
Oh gosh. But I'm like, I'm a much better looking guy when my shoulders are involved.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it's just my head, and it's just like, it looks weird, you know what I mean? It's like, anyway. Okay, so here's the dad joke question. Do you remember when the shovel was invented? Do you remember when the shovel was invented?
Okay.
All right, don't look it up. Try to guess it. And then when this podcast launches, jump over to our Facebook. And you're welcome to go to our Facebook page and look at some previous dad jokes. They're all pretty good. They're pretty good. All right. So do you remember when the shovel was invented? That's the challenge. Okay. All right. Back to what matters. Back to what people really want to hear. So I have one final question for you.
All right. Shoot.
Okay. There's a lot we covered. There's a lot more we could cover. This is a great subject. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been so much fun. I hope that I can find we'll have to do another one of these sometime. We'll have to come up with a different subject. Maybe in 4 years I'll interview your son.
There you
My
go.
dad has me doing all this grunt work.
No,
and
you need to interview my dad and see what he says.
Oh man,
Compare notes, huh?
Oh man,
I should have given you that idea.
It's even better. Oh, I can't wait to call him. Okay, so this would be great. It's always good to leave people with something to think about. So, what advice would you give someone? Maybe they're looking to enter the family business, but more importantly, maybe someone who was part of it, left, and is thinking of coming back. What advice? What would you say to those individuals?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. So I think I spoke to it earlier. Probably one of the big things for me was not having any pressure to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Having the freedom to make whatever I thought were the right decisions and not feel pressured into it. Really, I think was a big factor for me, and it led me to find out for myself what was important to me, which ultimately led me back to the family business. Right. So. I think that was huge for me and something that I think most could take from it. And then that outside experience and just, having any kind of other influence helps you, overall, have different viewpoints and aspects than if you just were in it the entire time. Right. Mm-hmm. So that outside influence I think is extremely valuable and has been for me. And again, because I didn't feel pressured into it, there wasn't a time frame or a timeline. It was truly something that I wanted and wasn't expected to do.
Mm-hmm. I lied. I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
You shared something that made me think.
Okay.
Along that same vein, we're still talking about the whole leaving, coming back.
Yeah.
Looking back, teenage, the whole process. What is the biggest takeaway, the biggest advantage, the biggest benefit that you think you brought into the business when you came back, that if you had not left, that you maybe would not have gained? So what is that big advantage, that big gain from leaving before deciding to come back?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the modernization and technology and willing to embrace change.
Okay.
A lot of stuff we've talked about, I think were the biggest things that I saw immediately as soon as I came back. That all right. Here's where we can really, make a difference and start to change our company and in positive ways. And like we talked about, they were big challenges too. But that was having that outside influence, if you will, and seeing how other people were doing things gave me that opportunity to see what was possible that maybe I wouldn't have been able to see if I had been there all along. Yeah,
you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So to learn more about Truck Parts, Inc., you obviously are on Facebook. You're also on YouTube. I know you have some videos on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the website is calltruckservice.com. Calltruckservice.com. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for being here. I think our listeners will benefit a lot, particularly people, obviously, who are tuning in going, I'm thinking about going into the family business. I've left. I'm thinking about coming back. Just because you have a good relationship with your dad doesn't mean, oh, yeah, you just jump in. I mean, it's a big decision to come back. It's a big decision.
There is, and it has to be a right fit, right? In what role you're coming back in, and what type of company it is, what that experience is.
Yeah.
So.
And Rick, for the show, thanks for being a guest on our podcast.
Yeah.
You get these your own Up in Your Family Business stickers that you can put on your bumper,
All right.
on your refrigerator, in your garbage can, whatever you want.
What are these going for on eBay? Anything?
Well, I've only done about 10 of these, so maybe when I get to 20 or 30, they'll be worth something.
Appreciate it. Gotta put that on my laptop. You got one on yours?
Yeah, or maybe they'll be worth less. I'm not sure.
Probably end up in one of my kids' water bottles these days.
That's
the hot thing.
There
right?
you go. So anyway, that's
Appreciate it.
a little joke there, so I appreciate that. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to another, listening and or watching another episode of Up in Your Family Business Podcast. I just love that name, by the way.
That's a good one.
The goal and purpose of this podcast, through the help of our guests, such as Rick, and again, thank you for that, are to help family business leaders solve problems, seize opportunities, grow, thrive, and achieve multi-generational prosperity. So the whole goal of this podcast is to get your son into the business so you can continue into the third generation, right? So if you like this one, obviously I encourage you to go back and check out some of the previous ones where you found this one. And we'll also have some more coming down the pike that you can check out here in the very near future. So, all right. Well, I wish you all well. Thanks for listening today. Get back to work, and we'll talk to you next time.